For first-time founders, like, you just don't know. We didn't know how to pitch, so it was like we're stammering, fumbling over slides. Like, we didn't know how to actually present the opportunity and package it. The second one is like, we just didn't understand what VCs were looking for. Like, I legit thought venture capital people were gamblers. Like, I thought that there was, here's 5 million, go see what you can do. You know, I just thought they were just gamblers. And then it took us many, many pitches for us to realize, like, oh, they actually want to see, like, there's a business here, and you have to understand your TAM, and what does the growth potential look like, all these things. I mean, the bottom line is this, it's like, if you're building something that everyone recognizes the value in, there's really no value in it because everyone's probably doing it. If you really believe that there's something valuable and nobody else can see it, and the gamble is like, are you wrong? Are you crazy? Right? And that's what we had to reflect on. But if you're not wrong, there actually is a lot of value there because no one else is doing it, right? And that is what value is. So especially as a young founder, you're like, am I crazy? Like, is there really no way we can beat MindBody here? Is this like, it's so clear to me, but no one else can see it. And you want to believe that these people are smarter than you. And they probably are, right? But they just don't understand your business or the opportunity. And the thing I didn't realize at the time is, like, in 1 hour, they're trying to understand what you've spent 5 years doing, right? And you think about it every day for 5 years, and they're trying to get in 1 hour, and there's just no way they can, right? Part of that's on me or the founder, because if you can't relay all that information in an hour, that's on you. But at the same time, as a first-time founder, it's like it takes a lot of reps to get to the point where you can explain it, and you're going to get told no for every single rep that you're building that ability, right? And that's okay. It really is okay. But let it be a chip on your shoulder, because that'll fire you up more.
Yeah. Great. My name is Tae. I'm a partner at Altos Ventures. We are here with Dan, the CEO and co-founder of PushPress. We've been working with Dan for the last several years after we led the Series A, and it's a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Tae. It's going to be an exciting conversation we're about to have. So my name is Dan Uyemura. I am the CEO and a co-founder of PushPress. We're a gym management software platform. And really, it's like our job to help a gym owner focus on the one thing that they really care about, which is their clients and helping their clients get fitness, and strip away all the other complexities of business through our software platform.
And when did you start the company?
Oh, so we had the idea in about 2011, started writing code around 2011. It took us about 2 years to get enough code written to have the first client, which was my gym, onboarded 2013, so about 11 years ago. Well, I guess you have to predate the gym ownership. I was an engineer. I spent about 10 years writing code and building stuff. So, builders always look at things from the lens of, like, how was this built? I opened the gym, I looked at the software that was available, and I could tell pretty clearly, like, this was built a long time ago, and or I don't know, it just wasn't up to, like, modern standards. Now that I've built it all, I can realize it takes forever to build this much software. So I get it now why it wasn't. But at the time, I was like, there's no way I can use this software. So for the first gym, we just kind of rolled our own, just piecemealed some stuff together on WordPress. And then kind of from there was just like this organic inquisition from my peers who were gym owners of, like, what are you using? How can I use that type stuff? That kind of like lit the light bulb of, like, we really should do this.
So you opened the gym. What year was this again? The gym itself?
The gym opened in 2010.
2010. Okay. Yeah. And why did you decide to open a gym?
I had been coding for about a decade, maybe a little bit more. I didn't really realize it at the time, but when you're an engineer, well, now it's like there's high leverage with coders, right? And obviously my bosses knew this. So it was like they would put dinners in front of me, Italian dinner. They'd put Coca-Cola and coffee in front of me, and I'd just be coding all day. And in that 10-year span, I probably put on like 30 pounds. I was getting a separation from a marriage at the time, and that's when you actually look at yourself in the mirror and go, oh, I'm single, I'm gonna have to go on a date, and I'm a slob. So I started, and I guess I didn't really know about this about myself at the time, but entrepreneurs are generally obsessive compulsive, I believe. And so I basically went for the fastest thing that can get me the most results, which put me pretty much in a direct path right into CrossFit. And I fell in love with it, became like a rabid CrossFit fanatic, helped people open gyms, got my coach's certification. And then I got laid off at MySpace and just said, I'm gonna take this money and go open a gym, give it a shot. I was tired of coding, I guess. It was in a time when the industry itself was trying to figure itself out. So everything was, fast paced, but also very under optimized.
And so when you opened your own gym, did you do anything differently? Like, how did you organize the gym? What was different about your gym?
So during this time, this is when it was like, I don't know if you know much about CrossFit culture, but back then it was like Pukey the Clown and dudes with their shirt off and just like crazy masculine, toxic masculinity type stuff, which, is the brand. But we actually opened our gym thinking like we want to tailor to 40-year-olds who are brand aesthetic appeal, like who appeal to a brand aesthetic. We picked colors that were non-shocking, and so our whole brand was more around inclusivity and for everybody when we opened it. And that was kind of, I was older at the time. I was probably 33 or something, which was, back then CrossFit was like a 20-year-old thing. So we were trying to get it to be more inclusive. I look for software immediately. I think with most founding stories, there's a lot of things that lead up to it, right? And so one of the things that led up to it was, and this is when I was still at MySpace, I was like spending a solid hour a day negotiating our payments rate for this gym we're going to open with a payments company. And man, they put me through the ringer. It was like fax in stuff, give me supporting documents, dating back for 10, like all of this stuff that I had to do. I was a really bad employee, but I even remember feeling guilty. Like I'm spending so much time faxing stuff, doing things to make this payments thing happen. It was just ridiculous. And anyways, I negotiated all the way down to 1.9%. And Brian worked at a bank, and he came in and he's like, "It's impossible. You're not paying 1.9." He told me to give me. I gave him our bank statements. He looked over it, brought it home, came back next day. He's like, "You're paying 4.8." And so I was so pissed off that like I spent a month of my time trying to negotiate this rate down. I got lied to, and then I had to find out because someone else like fact checked it. So that was a reason, because I was connected to the software. But I'm a software guy, so I was looking for software immediately to run the business. Yeah, that's kind of the genesis of it.
Yeah. And what was the issue with the existing tools? You mentioned they all looked old, but like what was the practical issue in terms of using them for your specific gym?
Yeah, so the biggest issue was every gym runs a little bit differently. And that's because in fitness, you have CrossFit, you have MMA, you have karate, you have kids fitness, sports training, just so many different things. And when I pulled up the existing software, the form field was like a mile long. Like every page was like a mile long of options and things that I had to like, every form you're like, what does this mean? What does it do? What happens if I change this? What are the ramifications on, like where do you think, what happens? And that thought process just blew me away. Like I can't manage this. And so practically speaking, it was like when one software tries to do too much for everybody, it ends up doing nothing for anyone. And this was granted, I'll cut them slack. They built this before like the iPhone came out. And I think the paradigm of the iPhone changed everyone's mind, because the iPhone can do anything for everyone, but they compartmentalized everything into apps, and it allows you to customize the phone to your own experience, what you want. And that's what I now expected, because this is post iPhone. Like I'm like, why do I have to have all this stuff? I just want what I want, right? And so I think the iPhone changed the game for how we approach software. I believe in that way.
You're scaling. Any milestones that you remember in those early days that you were anchored on? Like, oh, I need to get to 100 customers or 1 million of AR, whatever that is.
So the one that like I'll never forget. It's Will from Mucker, a venture capital firm. So we were pitching all these VCs early because I'm like, this is going to crush. We get payments money. Like there was so much to this. I'm like, there's no way this is going to fail. All the players suck. Like we understand it, blah, blah, blah. And we got laughed out of every venture room for years. And one of them, this guy named Will from Mucker, he told me, he's like, hey, this is a great idea. Why don't you come back when you're at 10,000 MRR? Because then we'll know you have escape velocity. I remember these terms exactly. And so right when we hit 10,000, I called him. And he's like, yeah, come down, show me what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, cool. And we were excited because I'm like, dude, he's going to invest because we did what he said. And he's like, this is all cool. Why don't you call me back when you get to 100,000 MRR, because then I'll know that you hit escape. Like literally told me the same thing again. And I'm like, oh, all right. And so we called him back at 100,000 and he's like, we pass. Like we're not interested. And I just remember like it gave us a clear line in the sand. Like, okay, we get to get 10,000 MRR and we're gonna call him back. But the irony is he's actually an investor now, because right. He heard that we were raising kind of a safe through another party. One of our connected friends, it was another fraternity brother of ours, was investing because he's done well in some stuff, and he's friends with him on the side. And he's like, hey, Will, you should check out this company. He's like, oh, I know them. And then Will called me and he's like, okay, it's time. Let's do this. And I'm like, oh, now it's time. Like, that's funny. Yeah. So okay. If you're thinking about getting investment money from venture capitals, they're not. You got to show them some social proof first. Like they're not just throwing money around like I thought they were.
When did Will invest, and what was the scale at that time?
I think we were at 1.4 million ARR, or maybe 2 million, probably around 2 million. It honestly was probably, it was a really good deal, I'm sure. This was like late 2020. So it was like during COVID, we grew, we had built a free product, and like we were actually building brand because we were the most authentic, like gym owner centric company. And we grew quite a bit. And it was like the signals were good, the social proof was good, the numbers looked good. But I didn't know how to raise money. And so this anti-VC type company, Calm Fund, came to me and he's like, hey, I think I can just get some LPs together and raise some money, but it's got to be at this valuation. And I was just kind of like, if I can do no work on this, because I don't believe you're going to raise it. Like I had no belief. Like, I'm going to do no work on this. You can have that good valuation, but I don't want to do anything. Like, And he's like, cool. And he did it in a weekend, like got it all closed up. And that's when Will heard of the circle. So anyway, that first round, we were at 2 million in ARR, roughly 2 million in ARR. And I think it was like at 11 million valuation. So it was like 5x at a time when people were getting like 50x or something. So I just didn't think it would happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you reflect on the many conversations you had with the investors, and a lot of them were just not going well. What do you think just was missing? Like what happened?
Super good question. For first time founders, like you just don't know. And I remember so with some of the early ones we pitched, so the first thing is we were playing rotating CEO. So like for the first pitches, I think Chris was the CEO and then Brian was the CEO for a while. And then towards the end, like at the 2020 stage, it was me. But I remember them coming out, we would come out and they'd be like, we don't see any passion. And I was like, what? Like, dude, we are so passionate. Like, I couldn't believe it. But really what it was we didn't know how to, we didn't know how to pitch. So it was like, we're stammering, fumbling over slides. Like we didn't know how to actually present the opportunity and package it. So that was early problems for one. The second one is like, we just didn't understand what VCs were looking for. Like I legit thought venture capital people were gamblers before. Like I thought that here's 5 million, go see what you can do. I just thought they were just gamblers. And then it took us many, many pitches for us to realize like, oh, they actually want to see like there's a business here and you have to understand your TAM and what does the growth potential look like, all these things. And then once we actually got to the point where like I knew how to pitch and I can actually get to the point of term sheets, I started to realize like, I don't really want to work with investors. They're all going to make me do the things that I could see all of our predecessors are doing that don't work. Like where you're obsessed over the money, you're just squeezing them for more revenue. You don't really care about them as customers or numbers to you. Like none of that stuff I wanted to do. So the irony is once we got to the point where we actually could get term sheets, I'm like, I don't even want to do this. So
yeah,
I felt, I don't know the word for it right now, but basically very disconnected from the fact that like something that I could see so clearly was not obvious to other people. So that made me feel disconnected for one. It put a huge chip on my shoulder, massive. We joke about it all the time that like, and I wish I did this, but we call it the list of all the people who didn't believe in us. Like, I wish I actually kept the list because, okay, so let me tell you a story actually, this is a good one. Okay. So at one point throughout this journey, I had to keep taking jobs because I just didn't make enough money. So I was like, I was running a gym, had to go take a full-time job and doing PushPress, like 3 things at once. And one of the jobs I took, I actually had to drive past the house of an investor who turned us down. Like we went to his house, we sat there and pitched him. I thought it went really well. And then he went back to the fund he was representing and he's like, oh, they suck. Like, don't invest in them. And so every day for like a year, I had to drive past his house and I flipped off his house every day. Like I was so pissed off at he became the personification of like everyone who said no to us. I mean, the bottom line is this, it's like, if you're building something that everyone recognizes the value in, there's really no value in it because everyone's probably doing it. If you're getting like, if you really believe that there's something valuable and nobody else can see it, and the gamble is like, are you wrong? Are you crazy? Right. And that's what we had to reflect on. But if you're not wrong, there actually is a lot of value there because no one else is doing it. Right. And that is what value is. So it was very challenging, especially as a young founder. You're like, am I crazy? Like, is there really no way we can beat MindBody here? Is this like, it's so clear to me, but no one else can see it. And you want to believe that these people are smarter than you. And they probably are, right? But they just don't understand your business or the opportunity. And the thing I didn't realize at the time is like, in 1 hour, they're trying to understand what you spent 5 years doing. Right. And you think about it every day for 5 years and they're trying to get in 1 hour and there's just no way they can. Right. Part of that's on me or the founder, because if you can't relay all that information in an hour, that's on you. But at the same time, as a first time founder, it's like it takes a lot of reps to get to the point where you can explain it. And you're going to get told no for every single rep that you're building that ability. Right. And that's okay. It really is okay.
Yeah.
But let it be a chip on your shoulder because that'll fire you up more.
Yeah. So how did you fund the company for the first several years? It was technically bootstrapped.
Yeah, there's a few different angles to it. We've always been scrappy, and there's like 2 pretty impactful moments I'll highlight. The first one, we printed a poster. We actually partnered with a weightlifting coach who's here in San Francisco, and we brought her down. We did a photo shoot. It was very inexpensive, and we printed this poster of like weightlifting technique. And it was just like Chris, co-founder Chris, had this brilliant like design eye and like visual representation eye. So he basically got a high-speed camera and took like the movements of a clean and jerk and a snatch and broke it down into like frame by frame what your feet should look like from a top-down position, from all this stuff. Put it on a poster. It looked awesome. And we sold it to the community. We gave it away to the community, but it was like $10 shipping. And the shipping only cost us $3. So like we made $7 a thing. We sold like 1,000 of them because everyone wanted it in their gym. But it was a double dip because we're like, this will get our brand into the gyms as well.
So you had PushPress on the
Yeah, it was a PushPress poster. So it was like, got them aware of our brand, but we made like $7,000, which at that time was like massive money. The second thing we did is we built a timer, which still works to this day. Like the timer's still out there. But what happened here was like Chris designed so many things for us to build and we couldn't keep up. We couldn't code as fast as he designed. And so he is like, I got nothing to do. We went to some conference where it was like a bunch of developers were there, and we met some guy from like Vietnam who does mobile development. And Chris was like, I have this idea for a timer. Can you build it? And he just worked up a bunch of mocks, and the guy built it. And Chris had like 3 months of nothing to do, so he just like managed it. We built this timer, and it's still awesome. It's still, I think it's like one of the best timers out there still. It was like 10 years ago. It was a workout.
What does it do?
It's a workout timer. So here's the hook. It was like a workout timer, and it was specific to CrossFit, so you can easily build like count down, count up timers, blah, blah, blah. But the hook was like, I was building all these connections in the space. So I'm like, I went to all the like celebrities in the CrossFit world, and I'm like, hey, we're building a timer. Can you add your voice to it? And so we built like this language pack where it goes like 3, 2, 1, go. And then the person can say something motivational like, hey, you're halfway there, keep going. And then we had like 20 different voices on it. And so people really liked that because the voices were on it. One of my early members at my second gym came in, and he was an network ad specialist. And he's like, dude, show me the numbers on this timer. And we were doing like 1 million workouts a month. Like we just put it out there and we didn't do anything. It just like started getting used, getting 1 million workouts a month. And he's like, yo, if I put ads on this, like we can make some money. And so he did. And, for the first like 6 months, he was like actively, because I guess it's like you have to actively manage the ads. I don't know. And we're getting like 30 grand a month on it, like pretty decent money. And that like funded the company for a while. But then he got busy. He stopped looking at it. The ads started crashing the timer. Like it just made it a terrible experience. So we ripped all the ads back out and like all the ad revenue declined. But like for a good year, we were probably making like 20 to 30 grand a month on this timer that we had built for free.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was the same thing. We built the timer because we wanted gyms to use it so they would learn who PushPress was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you reflect on that first chapter of PushPress, what was the most challenging moment?
And I'm sure a lot of software companies had this point where like you get enough clients using or customers using your product where it would be foolish to walk away from it, but you don't see a clear line of sight to the type of growth that makes you go like, hey, I can actually get paid to do this because it's just all volunteer work and sweat equity, right? And there was a time in 2017 where I remember turning around to Chris in the gym and I was like, hey, I think I'm going to hang it up. I'm going to give up on PushPress and I'm going to just focus on the gym because I see how the gym can actually pay me to make a living here. And I'm tired of working 3 jobs, basically. And him and Brian, I think, kind of talked me out of it at that point. Like, dude, just give us some time. Like, we've got clients, we've got customers, there's fit. I don't really remember exactly how they talked me out of it, but I remember being pretty much like, I think I have to like give up on this. But I didn't want to, and I think ultimately that was it. So like those moments will come when you found a company where it's just like you have to just kind of like see it through. There's something about your guys' philosophy that resonates with me. It's just like the durability and like until you really are dead, you're not dead, and you can find a way to get through it. But you just have to know it's gonna suck.
Yeah. Do you remember how many clients you had at that time?
Probably like a couple hundred.
A couple hundred.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had real customers, real usage, but it's just like not there yet.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel
this
right.
This was probably after Will said no to the 10,000, come back at 100,000. It's like you have these like demoralizing moments where like, dude, we got a 10x from here, even for and like I don't even see how we're gonna get there. So yeah, there's one I think key tenet to operating any business, and it's just like if you stay alive long enough, you will be able to start to manufacture luck. We didn't know it at the time, but like COVID was kind of around the corner, and that was like our lucky moment, I guess. Like we couldn't have created COVID, but that was a moment for us to like really rally into.
Yeah, let's talk about that because you guys accelerated growth during COVID, which is very ironic when all these gyms were shutting down. So how did that happen?
So I think like immediately when it happened, I was like, oh, it was like existential. Oh my God, right? I think it was two things. One, I was part of a mentorship group at the time, and I was on a call. His name's Dan Martell. I was on a call with him, and he said something that I will never forget to this day. He's like, never waste a good crisis. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like these are the moments when the winners win, you know? And then I thought about it and I really reflected on it. I'm like, yeah, dude, like you don't win races on straightaways, you win races on turns. And so that mindset shift like changed a lot for me. We had just released our free version without knowing that was going to happen. So that was incidental luck, right, in terms of timing. But I think what really accelerated us was we were like, okay, and I just decided at that point, like we're putting the foot on the gas with COVID, and we just did everything we can to like circle the wagons, protect our gyms, protect the industry. Like it didn't even matter if you were a client of ours or not. And we just got really vocal. Right. This is right around the time I started a podcast, right around the time we were like learning how to express ourselves to the market. And so, you know, we gave money away to people. Like we got a PPP loan and we turned around and just gave a lot of that away to our gyms to help support them. We just turned it into a grant. A lot of the ways I like to think are kind of like, how do you create a good scenario and everyone wins, but you get something out of it? Like we got a ton of publicity, but we gave money away. And my argument to my founders was like, well, we can either spend money on Google paid clicks, or we can just give the money to the gyms. Let's give the money to the gyms, you know? You can kind of like create a lot of goodwill moments if you think like that, I think.
What was the impetus to creating that free product that happened to come out at the right time?
Yeah. Well, the right time, this was just pure luck, honestly. But the free product was born, like, so a lot of this is just born from we understand our customer and the industry really well because we come from it. And we understand, like, when you start a brand new gym, $250 a month is a lot. Like, that's your first 2 members right off the table gone when you might be trying to like fight to get 10 members, you know? So it's like, that hurts. So really it was just like, if we know opening a gym is the most painful time financially, but we also know that's the easiest time to get on a software system and learn it, why not lean into both of those and just say, like, we'll give it to you free up front, and then we'll create a situation where, like, as we grow trust, as we build your business, you'll become a paying client. Because we're so customer centric, and we always have been, a lot of our energy and our payment comes from the energy of our customers. So, and really, I think a lot of gym owners flaw at this because it's like they don't make enough money to live, but they show up every day because their customer energy makes them feel full. We were probably a lot the same. So it was, the revenue was growing, the customers growing, like we were making some key hires and doing some good stuff, but like just the energy around the company and the community and the people's response to our COVID reaction or proactive steps, very filling to us. So I think we were amped at that time.
So you then go raise your Series A. So safe happens. William finally invests.
Yep.
What is that journey from there on for a year or so?
Yeah. So I think the I guess the overarching theme from like that from like 2019 or maybe even 2018 through is just a continuing reinvestment in education. So in 2018-ish, 2019, we joined SaaS Academy, which put me in rooms with other founders. You know, same thing. It's like you're sitting across from a table. I remember this actually. This happened here, but this happened at the first SaaS Academy I went to. We were just at $1 million in revenue. And I remember being at the table thinking I was like badass because I was like, because they were like, say your name, say your company, say how much revenue you're at. I'm like, we're at $1 million. Like super cool. And then the guy next to me is like, oh yeah, we're 14. And they're like, we're at 18, we're at 26. And I was like, oh my God, like we're nothing. And that happens here too. Like I'm like, we're at 15 and they're like, we're at 100, we're at 260, we're at whatever. And you're like, oh wow, we got a long way to go. But like, so getting in those rooms, just having mindset changes of like, oh, that's how you approach marketing. Oh, that's why you want to do sales this way. Like changes the game. Then we got Mucker. And Will would just bring me in every month and just sit down and be like, okay, let's focus on something. You know, like I never had that before. Like someone actually like, let's get real tactical and focus on something. That changed the game for me, right? And then being with Mucker got me more exposure to other CEOs who are going through, you know, like I get to talk to. If you're starting a business, it's like, how fast can you change your mindset? Because you don't know what you don't know. So you need to be around people who have been there. And, you know, and again, that continues on today. Like we just did this stuff this week where like, I'm listening to people who, you know, their current problem is like, how do I get from 100 million to 300 million? A different problem set that you have to be aware of early. So I think investing in your education is super critical as a founder.
Yeah. What do you charge your customers? What types of products are you selling? What is the economic model of PushPress?
Yeah. I mean, in general, the basic idea with the vertical SaaS platform is you want to build enough goodwill and trust with your customers because you're helping them handle their business more efficiently to the tune that you can help them in every way that can be digitized. Or maybe not even digitized. There's now a concept of service as a software. Have you heard of this? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's kind of how we see ourselves. These gym owners have opened fitness facilities. All they really care about is helping their customers get in shape find fitness and find wellness. They do not care about accounting. They don't want to do payroll. They don't want to find someone to service their rowing machines. They don't want to do any of that stuff. They just have to. And so I think the value add that any vertical SaaS can bring to their niche and their industry is to strip all of those unnecessary jobs that get created when you open a business away, and either, give them ways to systematize it, create process around it, or even automate it, or just take it away. That's my vision for vertical SaaS. And I think that's why we were talking about this earlier. This concept of trying to understand what the TAM is for vertical SaaS is a fallacy, because the TAM is literally as big as their expense line and their P&L, in my opinion, for each gym.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little more, because there's this notion in vertical market software, in any business that tries to go after a niche market, that the TAM is not big enough to build a great business. I'm sure you've heard that.
I have PTSD, yes.
What are your views on that?
I just saw the CEO of ServiceTitan talk about this yesterday. If you can open up the P&L of any small business and look at where they spend their money and understand which of these can be productized in software, you actually have the right to take all of that off an owner's plate and turn that into business, because as long as you're providing more value than your charge, and you're doing so in a way that creates more goodwill and more trust as you sell more products, you're actually doing them a service by bringing it all into one house. And especially in the SMB space, these owners want, I heard this term recently I love, these owners want one throat to choke. Like, they want one relationship that they can trust and buy into and have full confidence that they can hand all of that business off and then just focus on what they want to focus on. When you think of TAM in the simplest sense of there's only 100,000 gyms in the world and you can only make $150 per gym because that's what your software costs, that's wrong, because it's what about insurance, and what about payroll, and what about health insurance and benefits and banking and servicing and lending and payments? There's a million pieces to this stack that you can provide value to that are just overlooked by this TAM conversation.
Yeah. So which part of the stack are you addressing now, and what are some areas that you want to get into in the future?
I want to get into all of it, Tay. All of it. And it's purely from the lens of it will help gyms so much if they can control it all from one central dashboard, right? And the relationships, we bring network effects to the equation here. I can pre-negotiate better rates for water than they can get from their local distributor, because we will be negotiating on behalf of everyone in the network, right? So right now we built our whole system around payments, which is a whole nother funny story, because when I was pitching people back in 2014 on PushPress, people didn't even know what payment, they didn't even count payments. It didn't matter. But payments are so critical to this entire stack. We do some of their front end lead generation, website development, local SEO, marketing, and CRM tooling. It's funny, we built a branded app which allows every gym to have a branded app in the App Store, and we thought nobody would use it. But what we come to find is almost every gym buys it, because they actually want to stand out against Orange Theory. This single gym has no way for them to have their own app otherwise. And it's really cool for them to be able to say oh yeah, we sit next to Orange Theory in the App Store. So we do a branded app. We have a platform called Train, which was basically an early test of this App Store concept that we're building into PushPress that will allow for this is the fix to that one form field that creates, that solves everything for everyone, is building modular apps, may or may not come with a price tag, but extend the functionality of PushPress in a very specific way.
You mentioned the customer support being such an important part of even the early days.
Yeah.
How are you carrying that on as the company grows? Let's talk about that.
You have to deal with board members sometimes who push you on things that are nonsense. To kind of lay the thing, there's these ranges that you have to operate your business in. So you guys want gross margin in general to be 75 to 85% roughly, or 75% or better, right? And for those of you who don't know, gross margin is basically your revenue, the amount of money you spend on servers and things that make the product happen, and then customer support, because they're keeping the lights on. I've built my company intentionally around the fact that customer support is a go-to-market strategy. So I don't think it should be part of gross margin. That's the argument I will forever make.
Yeah.
Our customer support team and the way our people interact with our customers kicks ass so much that it turns our customers into raving fans that become a referral. It's a churn reducer and a referral creation. And I'm sure you saw it when you're investigating us. It's what gym management software should I use? And it should be a whole bunch of people saying PushPress, absolutely, hands down, use PushPress. An interesting way for founders to think about this is there are industry standards for most businesses to run their thing, but that doesn't mean you have to do that. And I think it took me a couple of years working with you to understand that I don't have to do everything you say. I respect everything you say. But,
yeah, thanks.
But yeah, every business is built different, right? And respectfully, you don't live and breathe PushPress to the not even close to the tune that I do. So it's
Right.
like the stuff that the big picture, the industry, the trends, the averages, but fight for a long time to say like our customer support team needs to be overstaffed, well-trained, highly tooled, and amazing, even if it means our gross margin is 70% for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think we actually talked about at length at some point where I actually told you guys, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that was really good alignment.
Yeah.
The early days, you were extremely customer obsessed, maybe out of necessity, but you came from the gym industry, so you understood your constituents really well. How did you maintain that culture until today when you now have, close to 100 employees?
Yeah. So, I mean, it starts with like understanding what you want to build your business around and what you feel is important. Part of this is I felt it was super important because as a gym owner, it sucks to like call into your software and have them have no clue what being a gym owner is like. Like, I don't even know how you support that. But on the other hand of the equation, I realized that was a superpower. Like if all of our big competitors were just oblivious to what it was like to run a gym, why don't we lean all the way into that and just know what it's like to run a gym? So and also out of necessity, because we were broke and we were bootstrapped, we had to hire whoever would work for us. And most people that really, really want to work with us are people who are passionately mission aligned. So like, yeah, I'll work for like way less than I should work for because I actually believe in what you're doing too. There's something special about that mission alignment, understanding the customer pain point, and then, having the support from, the company-wide support of saying like, we lean into this, that has created something magical with us where, our team, even our engineers are like, they're not gym owners for the most part, but they're like through osmosis or whatever, they're feeling that customer love and obsession and they're becoming that, and it starts to build some cultural things like, now our VP of engineering is like, when you onboard as an engineer, you spend 2 weeks in customer support and you get to learn how they get their teeth kicked in when you make a bug, right? Like you have to live that customer journey with them. So it is affecting our entire culture in a very positive way. We're an empathetic company. Like we 100% believe in our customers, and anytime a customer has a pain, you'll see like people are running towards the fire. The flip side of that's dangerous is that creates potentially 100 different directions people need something fixed in every day because there's like different things happening, different gym types, everything. So it's like you have to develop this muscle of saying no and also balancing your empathy of like, ooh, that's painful, but we can't do it right now. And I think the mistake we made before was like every pain point gets fixed. That's a problem in multiple ways. One, the focus becomes fragmented in terms of like what the company's doing. But two, it ends up creating like Frankenstein code where it's like, oh, I just bolted this thing on real quick to fix this thing. Oh, I just bolted this thing on to fix this thing. And then your software sucks in the end because it's like just a whole bunch of bolt-ons and no real architecture,
Yeah. Why did you start Instagram?
Content. Let's go. So again, the multi-pronged answer here. The first one, which is a recurring theme of what I'm going to, always keep saying is like, my competitors are not gym owners. The CEO, who even knows what the CEO looks like, has no voice, has no passion, is not there for gym owners. I am, so why wouldn't I put that out there, right? But two, I think we live in a day and age where people expect to learn about things that they want to interact with through various mechanisms, and one of those is media. The younger generation, maybe not my generation, but definitely the younger generation, like they go on social media to learn about products they want to buy and that's how they do research. Like we might use Yelp, they use Instagram. I also believe people buy from people, especially in the SMB space. So putting a face to the actual thing you're buying is important. It's costly to build a brand. That's why I want Tracksuit to help me, but it's very costly to build a brand, but it's much easier to say like, I'm Dan, I'm the founder of PushPress, and this is what I believe, and this is why I'm here for you. And then the brand will inherit that goodwill that I can build, and I'm just saying what I believe. So it's not hard. And lastly, straight out of Naval, we live in a world where like you get free leverage. Like social media has created free leverage, and in business, leverage is everything. So like, why wouldn't you take it if you can? Now, granted, it's an investment of your time, it's an investment of money, but how else could you get 1 million people to see something in a month without spending millions of dollars, right? Like you couldn't do that 10 years, 20 years ago. So for all those reasons, I'm very, very bullish on content.
Yeah. Were you comfortable filming those things in the beginning?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's like, as a founder, you've got to do stuff that you have to do.
And you felt like this was something you had to do.
Had to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even to the point where this is founder mode stuff, but even to the point where like I bugged our marketing team to like, hey, get someone to work with me on this. And they were just too busy doing other stuff. So I just found my own guy and just did it myself, you know? Yeah, I felt like you have to do it, and it's going to become increasingly more important as the years go by.
So you're building your personal brand. How do you try to check once in a while whether this is working or if it's worth it?
Really good question. And it's one of those things where you can easily doubt yourself. And in fact, you're not going to see, unless you're actually posting like and getting 1 million views on YouTube or something, a lot of the results you get are intangible or hard to measure. And the tracksuit guys actually explained something in one of the breakouts that we did that I thought was great. And it was basically, it was the iPhone example. So he gets up on stage and he says like, everyone who wants to buy an iPhone in the next 5 years, raise your hand. Or maybe not an iPhone, but a smartphone, right? Everybody raises their hand. And he goes, okay, everyone's going to buy a smartphone in the next year. Keep your hand raised. Everyone's hand, or maybe half the people's hands go down, right? And he's like, okay, who's going to buy a smartphone in the next 2 weeks? And then it's just like 1% of the hands stay up. And what he said is like, the 1% is who you're doing paid search ads for. You're doing like direct paid marketing because they're in the consideration set to buy right now. But the 99% of the people who had their hand up before will buy eventually, and they need to know who you are, what you stand for, why your product matters, you know, like the things you're solving. They need to know the general big picture, but they don't need to know what the latest megapixels on the phone is. You know, like those are buying consideration points. All of this content, in my opinion, is a channel, not the channel, but a channel that you can passively, continually put out like who I am, what I stand for, why I'm doing this, and just let people know that you're there. The big tipping point for me with content was there's a mentor in the space that sent an email out every day. I didn't read a single email for years. I didn't read one. But whenever anyone asked me like, who's the best mentor in the space, I would say him. And I asked myself, why did I say that? I don't know anything that, I don't even know what he wrote. Like I just read subject lines. And it's because every day he put something out and I knew he cared. That's it. So I think it just matters to do.
Were there any concrete examples of it paying off, like in a business context?
Oh yeah, that was the question, huh? I just totally didn't answer that. I mean, the real short answer is no, but I do go to events. I go to events frequently, and at every event I go to, multiple people will come up to me and say like, "I really love your content. Please don't stop doing that." You know, something to that degree. I've also gotten feedback of like, "Oh, I didn't know about PushPress. We just joined and became a member, but I found one of these reels you did, blah blah blah." So I guess that's kind of concrete evidence, but it's not. There is no direct like, I saw a reel, I bought PushPress. It's usually like months later, and it's just part of the like general consideration process. My goal with content is like, I want my sales team to like get on a demo and have someone basically like, I'm completely sold, just tell me the information on how to buy. Like that's kind of the motion that I'm trying to build for them.
How would you characterize yourself as a leader? Like what type of leader are you?
I used to be very insecure. Like, why would I be the leader? Why is my voice more important than anyone's? Every decision would turn into a committee. Like, hey, what do you guys think? What do you think? I am now much more becoming, there are certain decisions that I will just make. And I don't feel bad about that anymore. I don't feel insecure about that. Just because I see how much bureaucracy and chaos it creates when I start asking for everyone's opinion and we start tallying votes and then we have debates and discussions that go nowhere. It just doesn't help. So I think I'm evolving as a leader. I think no matter what, I'm always going to be empathetic. I'm going to care what people think. I'm going to listen to people's opinions, but I'm becoming much more able to just say, cool, I heard all your opinions. This is what we're doing.
And is there anything that you're actively working on to get better at this moment?
The real answer to this, if you're looking to start a company, is like you're going to be actively getting better at whatever the biggest fire is at every moment of the company, and it will never stop. Right now, I'm trying to become better at the financial and operational end of things. It's something I'm absolutely horrible at, and I know very little of. So just understanding like, how does annual planning work? And what really got me into this was like, for us to like think about a 3-year plan and start to look at like what 3 years looks like, I realized I had to build stuff now to be able to even get close to having this 3-year plan. And I liken a lot of this stuff to like farming. I don't know why I always think about farming, but you can't like harvest your grapes if you haven't planted them. And it might take a whole season for planting the seeds for the grapes to grow, and then another season for the grapes to whatever. And so when you think about it that way, it's like you really have to get ahead of all of this stuff to be able to get the grapes in 3 years. You know? Yeah, my big focus right now is like, how do you become operationally more sound? How do you run better meetings? How do we do like better board meetings, better monthly recaps, annual planning? All that stuff is kind of where I'm at.
What about the mission? Because in the beginning, there was no mission to empower the fitness industry. There was no mission that was that grand. And then it became that. And so how has the mission of this company changed over time?
The mission, honestly, has forever been something loosely formed around like beef. I remember one of the first board meetings we came to here, it was like, or maybe it was the first CEO conference or whatever, but we left with a mission of like, we want to help 1 billion people become fitter. But then we kind of were like, how do you measure that? You know, it just became really weird, or should they be, you know, like all this stuff. So we've always had this loose idea of we're really here to make the world fitter. And again, this is part of like, maybe some people have the skill, something I'm developing, but like in order to be a good leader, you have to be able to pack a lot of amorphous ideas into very concrete, like 8-word sentences. You know what I mean? Like you have to be very clear and it's got to be memorizable and repeatable. And I think I'm getting better at it. But yeah, that's why it went from something that was like very hazy into like, we are just here to make the world fitter by helping our gyms become better businesses. That's it.
Do you have a view on what the fitness world would look like in, say, 10, 20 years? And how does technology play into that journey?
Oh, that's big. This can go so many different ways because the problem with fitness is everyone looks for easy buttons, and fitness is not the easy button. And so right now what you get is you get 10% or 5% of the people in the world who are okay pushing the hard button because that's what they're into, doing it. But we're missing the mark on the 90 to 95% of people who just want Ozempic. You know, or who want the easy button. I'm actually starting to generate this thesis, which we should talk about sometime, that gyms should sell community and we should solve loneliness first. And the fitness is the byproduct. People show up at the gyms that we support because they're showing up for their friends as much as they're showing up for themselves. And it's almost like church, where the church for the body, you have this, you know, every day I go, I pay my penance or whatever, you know, I do my thing. Yeah. And at the end, the result is like, oh, wow, I got fitter. But really, it's like you're solving loneliness in the moment, and the easy button is the loneliness, which I think is a real thing. It's, I don't know, maybe weird to talk about, but the community is something actually very impactful in these gyms. So if we can figure out this easy button and you can flip it and get 90% of people in the gyms, like we could have literally like 20 times more gyms in the world just overnight. So to me, it's like there's a big growth opportunity if we actually attack the problem that's stopping people from coming to the gym.
Yeah, that's powerful. How do you want PushPress to be remembered after your time?
Hopefully not remembered, because that means dead.
Or how do you want people to talk about PushPress in year 2300?
This one might not. This might not answer the question directly, because I haven't thought about that, to be honest. But it does. It loosely will. So one thing I have noticed in the fitness industry that annoys me is there are very few multi-generational companies, and if you look across. Like, I think fitness is a tested, tried and true industry. But if you look at other ones, automotive, entertainment, whatever, like there are companies that have been around for 100 years. And I know fitness is newer to some regard, but there is no 50-year-old fitness company really. I guess maybe like 24-hour fitness, although they're kind of on the decline. And the reason is, I think it's because the easy button problem. Oh, well, you know, like what's the newest fad? We'll do shake weights. Like, okay, let's sell those on TV. Let's do jazzercise. And everything turns into like a DVD. Buy it now for $29.99 and it dies in a year. And I think like what we need to start having in the fitness industry is like multi-generational companies that live, because they're not built on hype and they're not built on fads, but they're built on something real. And that's ultimately like where my mind has started to go. Like, this company definitely should outlive me, and it should support an industry that is outliving all the people who open the gyms themselves.